Okay, a very big welcome to Pennine Ham Radio Club and a big welcome to all our members and guests at tonight's meeting. And we're very pleased to be joined by our one of our club officers, Ken, G4VZV, who is still out in Spain, in fact. He's been out on a little short trip to Spain for the last week or so. And those who are on the club WhatsApp group and those that are on Facebook will have seen some of the postings that Ken's made from his activities in Spain. So what I want to do first of all, and this is really for the benefit of one or two new people in the meeting here tonight, but also for those that catch up with this video on our YouTube channel who like to follow what Ken's been doing out in Spain and find out more about what he's been up to. So Ken, I'm going to pass the microphone over to you, if you wouldn't mind unmuting, and just start us all off, and I'll carry on with my bits after you.
Right, okay, thanks, Nick. Right, well, for those that don't know me, I'm Ken. G4VZV is my English call, and when I'm down here in Spain, I'm EA5 / G4VZV. I'll go slowly through this because there are quite a few listening on YouTube, and I know that some of them are not English nationals. So, and there's also Igor from the Ukraine. So what I'll do is I'll speak slowly so you can pick it all up. Okay. Also, I'll use a couple of, or two or three technical letters or words, and I'll explain what they are as well as I'm going along. Right, okay, a little bit about me, and I know that most of you on here know this. I've been licensed since approximately 1973, 74, and a little bit of a family hobby because my late father, he was also licensed. His call was G4VZV, G4NQL. Right, ever since I started listening on the radio, well, I started listening to commercial stations from early days, like the 1974-75 period. And I was fascinated by listening to long distance stations, particularly from places like Quito in Ecuador, the radio station of HCJB and Transworld Radio and places like that. And it was the stimulus for me to enjoy and to get involved in what's called DX communications. And by that, I mean long distance communications. Obviously, I became licensed, and after becoming licensed, I started to get involved in building my own equipment. I built 2-element, 3-element, 4-element wide-spaced HF beams, a 2-element cubical quad. These are all very large antennas on a 20-meter high tower. And of course, as a result of that, what happens is you work lots of DX, the long distance stuff. However, as times progressed and I did move house, and now where I live, I'm a little bit more moderate with the antennas, or the antennas that I've got up on the tower. Right. However, following on from that, I did buy a property in Spain, as a lot of you know. And when I bought the property in Spain, I thought, how can I combine the advantages of being further south in the Mediterranean and work a lot of this long distance communication? And I started to think a lot about this. I read a lot of books, and I came to the conclusion there's something very close to my house, only about 100 meters away. I can hear it if I stand outside. It's the salt water, it's the sea. And the more I read up about the salt water and the effects, the more I thought, I'm going to make sure I build a station that's not only formidable, but extremely good for DX. What I realized is that salt has a big advantage in radio communication. And for those that don't know why, the best way for me to describe it is that it's a saline product that's in the water, in every sea or salt lagoons, salt lakes, salt flats, whatever you want to call them. And you can make that work to your advantage. I know that Nick is now going to put some videos on, and this is of me. I think I'm been recorded from in the UK, and this is the strength of the signal that I put out with moderately low power. So I'll pass that to you, Nick, to play a video.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ken. All I've done is from the video clips that Penn has posted over the last few days, just put them together in one very short video. So I'll just share this with people. It just gives an indication of some of the people listening to him and some of Ken's contacts.
My neighbour said to me, right, this is absolutely bang on this. My neighbour said she came out, she was 80-year-old then. She came out and she said, she looked up in the guy, looked at me and then looked up at my antenna and said, that is a nice, that's nice, it's a CQDX, here is a pedestrian portable station with a mobile station also. Here is a pedestrian portable in the Salt Lagoon.
And I'm in the sunshine. Look at that, Ken, and the rest of Pennine Ham guys and girls. Nice to get out with the radio again. Brought the VHF and bought the HF as well. Here's our Ken doing his thing.
I don't even have to, I could point 40 degrees away from you and still hear you. It's unbelievable. 73, all the very best. Pleasure as always. I look forward to doing it again, Ken. Take care, buddy. And we'll enjoy the propagation while it's going. 73 from the city of Sydney. Bye-bye.
Yeah, cheers there. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Delta Zero Mobile. Delta Zero. Okay. Victor Papa Lima. Victor Kilo 2 Victor Radio Charlie. Yeah, very good morning. Victor Papa Lima from Sunny Southern. I'm happy about that because I don't think I've spoken to a lot of guys in the UK that are pedestrian mobile, but I don't think I've spoken to anybody, and I'm happy about that because I don't think I've spoken to a lot of guys in the UK that are pedestrian mobile, but I don't think I've spoken to anybody.
I'm going to operate the radio from this location. I'm just setting up now, and I'm about 8 feet away from the sea, and that's the view. This is called Pinette, and you can see this on the map. It's called El Pinette, E-L-P-I-N-E-T, and I'm in Square India Mike 98 Quebec Delta. If you can see the white buildings across the sea, that's the town of Santa Paula.
Short KFL to you to Philip, Golf for Delta Charlie India. Once again, all the best to you, Ken. Enjoy your day and enjoy your Thank you.
Yeah.
Best have a good day from Indonesia. Bye-bye.
Yeah, cheers. Back to you, Phil.
Yeah, okay, Ken. Yes, cheers, Mohammed. Thanks very much for taking the time out to work us. Really appreciate it. A great afternoon. So, you take care. Look forward to the next time. Golf 4 Delta Charlie India. Cheers, Mohammed.
Okay, any other DX? Any other DX? Go ahead.
Oscar Hotel 8.
There you go, Ken. And I've also put some slides together, Ken, with a reflection of some of the DX you've worked. So I'll put them up on the screen. And if you wouldn't mind, Ken, just talking people through what you were doing on those particular days. So just bear with me while I put that up on the screen.
CQDX, here is a pedestrian portable station with a mobile station.
That's the one we just heard, by the way. So I'm going to just scroll past that and go to the next screen. So Ken, this is what you posted on the 2nd of March for your activities on that day. Do you just want to talk us through some of the contacts you had that day and how conditions were?
Well, I've got to say, I've had a super time out here because the weather's been good and the radio communications have been good. There isn't a day go by where I don't work long distance. As you just heard then, a guy on one of the recordings who called me then from Indonesia. You'll see the trolley there. There's not much to the radio trolley, but the way this works, it's all about knowing what you're doing with the radio, knowing how to put it together, and knowing how to get the efficiency from the antenna, which you can see on the trolley, which is in a sleeve on the trolley. Now, the trolley you can buy from anywhere. I bought this from Leroy Merlin, which is one of the DIY shops down here in Spain. But on there is an amplifier, which you can see at the very bottom. I don't use that, and I can honestly say I've not used it for the best part of 2 years. I actually coupled it up to test it to make sure it worked. I've not needed to run more than 60 or 70 watts of output power. You'll see above it is a box which is an antenna tuning unit. It's combined with a ground tuning unit. That ground tuning unit is the key to make this work. What a ground tuning unit does, in effect, you're wanting to get the maximum efficiency from that antenna that you've got, which is vertically standing up there in the sleeve. Now, you're trying to get the current in the antenna to be as great as possible, because as you produce your radio frequency, what's happening is you've got stray currents, and usually they go down to ground, and if the ground is dry, they get absorbed, and then the efficiency of the aerial above the trolley doesn't work very well. You may get 50% efficiency, but I can guarantee that my antennas on that trolley will get 99% efficiency. And the way that I do it is I tap into the braiding of the coax that's coming down, and then I tap into it, and then I have what some would call an artificial earth. I call it a ground tuning unit, and what it's made of two things. One is an inductor, so it's a coil of probably 2-inch diameter of copper wire, and also a variable capacitor. For those that don't know, this is the intricacies of the insides of radios and tuning units. It's a coil of wire about the best part of 2-inch diameter, maybe 8 inches or a foot in length. And then the capacitor is where you've got plates that move like that in between each other and create what's called a capacitance between the plates, and that's controlled by a variable knob. What you're doing is by creating that circuit, it's what we call in radio technology LC circuit. What you're doing in there is forcing and maximizing the current into the bottom part of the aerial on the braiding. And what you're going to do then is, if you can force down into the ground the current, which is stray, you then try to create the magical other half of the antenna that's above. And as you're forcing that current down, you're creating a match equal to the current in the antenna above. And if you do that and force the current up that antenna, so don't touch the antenna while I'm talking, otherwise I'll certainly get more than a tingle off that aerial. And by doing that, at the moderate powers that I use, I'll get the distribution of current as high as possible up that antenna. So you might ask, so what does that mean? Well, you'll see I'm next to salt water there. That's the salt lagoons. And what happens with the salt lagoons is they're it's shallow water, unlike the sea, and actually performs better because it's shallow and very dense in salt. I've put my hand into that salt water and touched it into my mouth, and it's incredibly dense in salt. So, as I explained earlier, what happens with salt water is when the signal leaves that vertical antenna that you can see, it leaves it at very, very sharp, low angles, and it skims off that water. It actually reflects off the water. It doesn't go under the water. It reflects off it because of the ionized particles in the lagoon water. And then as a result of that, it creates an amplification and an extremely low angle takeoff. And obviously, as a lot of you know, when you're trying to work signals around the world, one of the key things to do is get the sharpest angle of takeoff, anywhere between maybe 5 degrees and 20 degrees, but I would say probably nearer to 10 is ideal. So when I put a call out, I'm not always getting heard by stations locally because the takeoff from that antenna is just too sharp. But what I am doing is getting heard in Indonesia. If it's not Indonesia, it's another part of the world. So that's what I do, and it works, like I said, 99, 100% efficiency from that radio station. The stations that I worked on the 2nd of March, it's very difficult for me to read at this position here, but it looks like I worked stations in Tennessee, in the USA, also in Chile. I'm not sure if that was in Santiago, the capital city of Chile. That was just 2 of the stations. And if I look below, I think I've listed even more. They're all over the world. You can probably see them. I don't know if you can enlarge it at all, Nick. You probably can't. But there's a lot of stations there, all over the States, all over Canada, South Africa, Brazil, I'm not sure if Bolivia is on that, La Paz, but I worked a station sometime in La Paz in Bolivia. Also Barbados and other stations in the Caribbean. Okay, can you move it on to the next slide, Nick? I can't hear you at the moment, Nick.
Yeah, Ken, I was just going to say, sorry, my apologies. What I was putting to you really was that on that particular day, in just a few hours, you worked into North America, you worked into South America, you worked into French Guiana, you worked into Israel, you worked in lots of different countries. But what marks it out as being particularly different is that if I'm calling from a home location in the UK, running as you were 60 watts into a vertical antenna, on a good day, I might be able to work one or two of those stations there. But I don't do it by calling CQ. I do it by chasing them. I'm hoping I'm going to be heard by those stations. What you're doing is calling CQ, and all these contacts here are coming back to you, aren't they? They can hear you, and often I've heard some of the QSOs with you, Ken. Some of them are saying you're the strongest stuff coming out of Europe.
Yes, that's happened to me quite a few times on this visit down to Spain. You're right there. That's what's happening. I have a lot of satisfaction in putting a call out. We call it a CQ call for those on YouTube. And that is basically a call for anyone to come back to me. And the number of stations that come back sometimes is actually embarrassingly good. I'll get sometimes as many as a dozen American stations coming back at once, which I haven't done in England. When I'm back in England with one of the biggest antennas on my tower that you could put up, it's still not easy. But with this system, it is phenomenally good. And I hope that if the only thing that we can come out of this meeting with tonight is a few of you who start to look at this and think, I'd like to do a bit of this. I'd like to get involved in this. I live not far from the sea. Let me have a go at making my own station, because if you succeed, and I'm happy to help anyone make a trolley, you will have satisfaction in amateur radio like you have never had before. Yep, I sometimes can work nearly all continents in one session. And stations that others cannot hear. And like Nick's just said, I was on only yesterday, I think it was yesterday late afternoon, when a guy came back to me and said, I just don't know how you're managing to do this on battery power, and you're the only station I can hear at the moment coming out of Europe. I cannot hear any other stations, and you are on a two-wheeled sort of homemade radio trolley. And just said, how do you do it? Well, yeah, I've been doing it now for the best part of, I don't know, maybe between 10 and 12 years. And it's fascinating and it's good in other ways. You learn a lot about geography, you learn a lot about languages. It's enabled me to speak Spanish on the radio, and you learn primarily a lot about geography, world geography. Okay, back to you, Nick.
Yeah, Ken, we've got a question in the chat from Igor, who says, how long is the antenna your vertical antenna that you're using there?
Right, that antenna, Igor, is one that I got off AliExpress, one of the Chinese extendable telescopic whips, which in England cost about the equivalent of £10, maybe £12. I've got 6 of them at the moment. They are the best thing I've bought when it comes to antennas, best value, because that telescopic antenna there, I think that's when I was on 20 meters. So it's a quarter wave. So it's going to be approximately what we say 16.5 feet, or approximately 5 meters in length. That's obviously 5 meters for the 20-meter band. If I want to operate on 17, because this telescopic whip, which is made of stainless steel, is extendable, I can drop it slightly. I put my ATU and put the settings to where they should be in the manual, and I just drop the antenna a couple of inches at a time until I see the SWR at 0. So for 17 meters, if my memory is good, you go from 16.5 feet, and I think it's about 13 feet in length. And then if I want to operate on 15 meters, I drop it a little bit more, and I drop it down to approximately 11 feet in length. And if I want to go further up the band to, let me say what we're looking at, 10 meters, then that only has to be approximately 8 feet. So I just keep dropping it. And when I get the SWR manually to 0, I know I've got a perfect quarter wave vertical antenna. And then I start the process with the ground tuning unit. You know, the one that I mentioned, Igor, with the coil and the capacitor. Okay.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Ken. And Igor's just replied, great, thank you for that. Let me just take this on to the next slide then. And here's a nice one. Juliet 51 Alpha, which is a de-expedition that's been running for the last few weeks out in Guinea-Bissau in Africa. And incidentally, for those who have tried to make a contact with J51A or who have done so, I was reading today that they've been averaging 1,000 QSOs per hour in that de-expedition. 1,000 QSOs per hour. I mean, that's some operation and some operating skill from the guys behind it. But on that particular day, Ken, you worked J51A. You also were called by XE1CQ in Mexico. You worked Henry, who's in the meeting here tonight, M0ZAE down in Bedford, who's also part of Pennine Ham, which was a good one for you. And also you were working quite a few US parks on the air stations, who said that they were very surprised to hear you, as once again, you were the only station from Europe they could hear. So that was a pretty good day as well, wasn't it, Ken?
Yeah, let me just start with Japan 51 Alpha, and then I'll move to the parks on the air. J51 Alpha, I knew it was on the HF bands, this station, like you said, from Guinea-Bissau in West Africa. And what I did is I had a quick look around. I think it was on 15 meter band. And I did hear him, and I thought, goodness me, he's a strong signal, because as well as, you know, putting a good signal out, my antenna receives signals extremely good at low angle. And I thought, goodness me, he's working split frequency. I haven't got a prayer of working this guy with 60 watts. And the stations that were calling him were incredibly loud, and they were almost screaming at him for him to answer them. And I thought, how can I do this? And I thought about it for a minute or two, and I thought, Now I know from my experience that these de-expeditions are stations that go out to places where we don't normally get to with amateur radio. And I thought they use skimmers, and they use skimmers in a very careful way. You have a main operator who keeps switching over because it's obviously very tiresome work. But what you have got is probably 2 or 3 receivers on either side with operators, and their purpose is basically to highlight to the main station what they can hear. And I know that this guy in Guinea-Bissau was calling on 21.295 megahertz. So I thought, right, he's calling and listening 5 up. So he's listening to stations 5 kcs higher than himself on what's called a split frequency. So I thought, I'll go up to from 295 to 300, and goodness me, I couldn't hear myself. There were that many stations calling. So I thought, he's not going to mess about on this frequency. He's going to go slightly higher because he's listening 5 up. And I know from experience that we usually work between 5 and 10 up. So I put myself 3 more kcs higher, and the frequency appeared quiet. In fact, almost silent. So I just called, and I only called twice. And then one of the skimmers must have picked me up, because all I got back listening on his frequency was just the VZV station, only the VZV. Go ahead. And I thought, goodness me. And I got him on the second call with a 5 and 9 report, I think, is what a lot of stations get. So that is how I managed to get that DX station in the log from a radio trolley. The other side of the point that Nick's put to me is about POTA. One of the most incredible things is I hear a lot of American POTA stations. POTA stands for Parks on the Air, for them that are listening on YouTube. Now they're operating from parks. There's thousands in North America, and I'm picking them up so clearly. And I thought, I know I'm in a location in the salt lagoons where not many radio hams go. In fact, very few. And I do know that it's only been activated 3 times. My location, which happened to be a park on the air. The salt lagoons are parks. So I thought, I'll call in. And I called these stations, and it was almost like comments of, you've made my day, to be calling me from ES0165 down in the salt lagoons. And I thought, wow, can you see the satisfaction again? It's almost like it's like there's just so much of it. It's incredible. Okay, back to you, Nick.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. Yeah, and I incidentally, for de-expedition chasers, I saw during the week that Bouvet Island, where they're currently running a de-expedition, that's also been designated as a park on the air as well. So that's a pretty good one for people to work. On the next slide, you described it as this on Facebook, Ken. Cracking DX in a mid-evening session, 27th of February, started on 15 meters working European stations, and then you worked into South Africa, and then Brazil, and then a string of US stations, and then Puerto Rico, more stations in the US, and then Zulu Delta 7HI in St. Helena Island in the South Atlantic, and then Namibia, and then I'm exhausted reading this out in your session there, and then into Canada, back into the US, Connecticut, Maine, South Carolina, Kentucky, Virginia, and then you were called by 9Y4JF in Trinidad, followed by OA4AKC in Lima, Peru, and finally, by then I'd have been exhausted, Rob, VK3AUX in Australia. I mean, that was some evening, Ken.
Well, fantastic is the only word. They say fantastico in Spain. It was satisfaction of radio beyond my dreams. I'm telling you, I mean, you've just read it out and it was exhausting listening to it. I don't want to blow my own trumpet. I know I can do it. It's easy. But goodness me, please, if there's just one of you tonight thinks I need to make a trolley, I'll come and help you do it. And you will never look back. It is just incredible. Back to you, Nick.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. And then, of course, 23rd of February, and a number of us in the room here got in on the act as well. You had a very, very long QSO. I think you were on talking to Wayne, VK2VRC, for about an hour. When I heard you, I came on the tail end of that discussion, and I heard you, and he was not quite S5 with me, maybe S4, S5, but not terribly strong. And you were towards the end of the QSO, and I called in using one of our club special calls we've got, Golf Bravo 1 Papa Hotel GB1PH, and I got a QSO in with Wayne, which was very good. Obviously, I'm nowhere near salt water. I'm up in the Pennine Hills in the middle of England, nowhere near any, lots of water, but none of it salty. And I've got quite a modest station. I was using my off-center fed dipole and about 250 watts, and got a nice signal report from Wayne. And then another person in the room here, Phil, G4DCI, called in from his home location and also made an even better QSO with Wayne, exchanging good signal reports. And Mike and Adriana in Germany, club members, and Jeff out in Belgium, ON8NC, also one of our club members, also posted on our WhatsApp group some recordings of Wayne and yourself in QSO. They weren't able to get into the contact themselves, but they were able to hear both sides of it, Ken. And I also see that apart from a couple of other stations before you concluded that day, you were met by a passerby on the beach, a Walt Delta Hotel 2 Uniform November, a German radio amateur who was on holiday in the area and stopped to have a chat with you. I bet he was fascinated, Ken.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a German radio ham walking on the beach with his wife, and he heard me, he saw what I was doing, and he came up to me and he introduced himself. He stood with me for a few minutes, and I was talking to the guy that you've just mentioned in Australia, and I said to him, "Do you want to have a word with him?" And I think he had a couple of words and just introduced himself. But yeah, he could not believe that I'm stood on a beach with this device in front of me, which it's not the most difficult thing to make. I'm telling you, it's quite simple. But he could not believe how clear the guy was from Australia, from Sydney, the suburbs of Sydney. And I sort of say to people, yeah, it's not a recording you're listening to. This is a live contact on the other side of the globe. And well, I've had that done. I've had that where many amateurs have come up to me as they're walking by, but that was just an experience of one this time. You did mention, and here we go, you mentioned that you, Nick, were using an off-center fed dipole, which I don't know how long it is, but I would imagine it's about 60 feet or 20 meters long.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, with 250 watts. I know that Phil on the meeting here tonight has got a big hex beam up, and I'm not sure what power that Phil was using at the time, probably 300 watts. I know he can get through with the hex beam, but we're talking about massive antennas, and I'm using a 5-meter whip with 60 watts. I can replicate this. When I'm back in the UK, but it's not as easy. And I'll tell you why, because we're further north latitude-wise on the globe. And the further you are to the equator, the easier it does get. It's something to do with the signal from the central part of the globe, obviously the equator. And if you can get on the equator, the signal has the ability to go north of the equator and south of the equator, and hence you can pick up a bit more DX. Whereas if you're up in Norway, you probably won't, or the British Isles for that matter. But yeah, all I can say is I'll say I'm the expert in this. I am. There's no doubt about it. I've now become, well, I call myself the voice of the pedestrian station of the Costa Blanca, because no one can touch me. Even a guy only 5 kilometers from here with a tower 25 meters high with a 5-element beam still cannot reach the stations that I'm working with 60 watts, and he is quite often using 1 kilowatt and has gone up to 1.7 kilowatts. That's 1700 watts, and I'm using 60. I can use 100. I've got the amplifier on the trolley. I could go up to about 130 watts. If I have the amplifier on, I'd need to carry another battery with me because I'm on battery power. I'm not plugging my radio into the mains electricity. I'm doing it all as a portable station. So, yeah, back to you, Nick.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. And you'll be pleased to know that one of the listeners on YouTube is Tim, G4VZV, who was slightly late logging into the meeting tonight, but he's going to catch up with the rest of it later on. But he wanted to hear your thoughts, Ken, on what you do with your trolley there. And he's just made the observation in a chat with another one of our club members there on YouTube that Ken does so well with his station. So thank you, Tim. Glad that you're enjoying Ken's description. And for Tim's benefit, I have heard and been on the back end from my home QTH of listening to Ken using a trolley down on the Humber estuary, Ken, where you've been managed to work in DX and into the Pacific down by the Humber estuary. That's pretty good as well, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the nearest place to Sheffield that's got salt water, unfortunately for me, is 50 kilometers away, but it's the River Humber. I tried to put myself next to the Humber Bridge. There's a free car park, and I can literally take the trolley out of the car and walk 20 feet. And there are even benches laid out for anyone to sit on, but I can sit on the bench, put the trolley together, and I can work DX from there. There's a reason why it's not quite as good from there as well as it being further north than the Mediterranean, and that is it's what we call brackish water. It's a mixture of fresh water coming down from inland and the salt water coming in from the North Sea into the River Humber at the city of Hull. So you've got a mixture of salt water and fresh water. So I'm never going to get that 100% efficiency as I do when I'm working against shallow salt water of the salt lagoons. But it's still worth doing. And especially when you're sat at Hessel facing south and you've got the sun on your face, keeping you nice and warm while you're playing radio. Back to you, Nick.
Yeah, on the chat in the meeting here, Nick, 2E0LUN and KC2VWR has just said, I'm going to have to try this at the Hudson River, which is also brackish and tidal. But yeah, you're quite right, Nick. You definitely have to give it a go. And that was our slide presentation, Ken. So I'm going to stop sharing and just open up the meeting really now for anyone who wants to make any comments, any questions, any observations that people would like to make. This is your opportunity to dive into the meeting. So I'm going to hand the microphone over. Who wants to go first? Yeah, right. I've got Robin first of all, then I've got Russell, I think. Yeah, go ahead, Robin.
Yeah, Ken, thanks for that. Really interesting. We've got a nice little bay here, a little half moon bay, nice sand, out to sea, facing south. Unfortunately, mobility-wise, I'm not fit to get there as I'm by myself, unless family are home. But Gail and I, we used to regularly, in the summer, the winter, it's a bit stormy and a bit cold. We would regularly be down on our little beach, our little bay. We got a Hustler antenna that used to, on the back of the Morris Minor, and I'd have a spike, stick it in the sand, and a nice piece of wire with a lump of metal on the end of it, chuck it in the sea, and the ICOM 706 and a small gel battery, and we could be there for hours. The salt water is amazing. I'm not far away from it at home, but I can't throw a wire into it. But we used to get such good results, and on the few nice sunny days we'd have in the summer, a good way of picnic, especially the grandchildren when they were younger, they'd be paddling and we'd be doing radio. The trouble I have, I can't get back there really because the winter storms keep taking the sand away, and it's rocky and boulders, and I'd break my neck. But when the family are up and there's a bit of help on a nice day, we did use Dunnet Bay, which is on the north coast one time, but the trouble now is it's so popular, holiday makers and things, and they get too interested in you. And if you've got a wire going out into the sea and there's dogs and whatever, but our own little bay is relatively quiet, although again the internet has publicized it, and you get more people. But a great way to spend a whole chunk of the day running 10 watts and not worrying about the battery going flat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. Yeah, sorry.
Absolutely. Let me just come back to you on that one. Yeah, I don't want to dwell on it too much, but there's something called the Fresnel zone, which I think you may know about. And if you don't, I'll explain it anyway, because there are others that might not. The Fresnel zone is a zone close to the salt water where you will get best reflection from your vertical antenna. And it's usually 2 wavelengths away from the water's edge. So on 20 meters, you could go, say, 40 meters away, which is a what? 150 foot, probably. I don't know off the top of my head. So you could probably go as far away as the car park to the beach, and you may be able to work from there. So the key is to get as close as you can to the water's edge. Closer the better. But if you can go about 2 wavelengths away from it, you'll still get the effect. And if you walk further away with a handheld radio as you're doing it, you'll notice the signal that you're listening to going down and down and down until you'll probably lose the signal. And that's how good it is. But if you've got an antenna like that and you can put it close to the water's edge, superb.
I can work from the harbour. We've got a small harbour, and not in the winter, but yeah, I can work just down at the harbour, and I'm still on dry land on the hard, and the difference it makes, as you say, being close to the sea, and we've got a lot of opportunities up here of being close to the sea. And it's amazing. But even from home, my antenna system's not that far away from the sea. makes a tremendous difference. But yeah, really enjoyed your talk. Thanks very much, Ken.
The problem that we have in the UK is that the weather's rubbish. Let's be right. The weather is 9 months of winter and 3 months of rain, as someone used to say to me. And that's about right. Because I don't like going out in cold weather. I do not like cold weather. And, you know, if I'm going to do something like do it in the UK, I probably want to sit in the car unless it's 25 degrees. So I can understand, and you're further north, and I think where I am in Sheffield or near the River Humber. Yeah, ask me what I want to do for the future, and I'll tell you what it is. I think I'd like to go to some exotic location in the Pacific and operate from the Pacific where it's warm. Okay.
Thank you, Ken. Russell, G4ZRZ.
Hi, Ken. Very interesting there. Interested in the ground tuning unit you're using. I'm wondering if that would be useful to use in a home situation, you know, where you've got a vertical antenna and a series of radials, say, laid on top of the ground, whether you could load that up. I mean, speaking personally, I live quite a long way from the sea, so I wouldn't have any benefits there. But, you know, we've got clay soil here and I've got radials in the garden. Just wondering if I could maximize the ground current to maximize the antenna.
I've had a go at it, Russell, and it's very difficult to do, to be honest with you. I mean, a ground tuning unit is in effect it's what we call, for the viewers on YouTube, an artificial ground. And basically, you're kidding your radio, you're kidding the matching that you're trying to force current back to the antenna, and obviously try to get a better match, better efficiency. The problem I think you've got at home, and this is the problem I had, is that if you put a vertical antenna, let's say a 40-meter band, quarter wave, wire, or like you have a DX commander, which is the same thing. I run a wire up a pole and it's 10 meters high. Invariably, you want to put it away from the house. The reason is, if it's near the house, it's going to pick up every bit of noise that's around the house. And that can be anything from the refrigerator to the washing machine, to the router in your house and everything, as you know. So you're trying to diminish that noise. So you're putting your antenna away from the house in the corner of your garden. By doing that, yes, you could make it work, but you'd really need the ground tuning unit close to the verticals, the base of the vertical antenna. Because what I said is, what you really want to do is create your cables to be as short as possible. Number one, to stop RF getting back in, because on a coax, it goes 3 ways on a coax. It goes up, down, and then up again, I think, or it's up, down, and up. Yeah, I think that's the right way. And basically, your coax will pick up RF unless you've got it well and truly choked. I mean choked. When I say that to the YouTube people, I mean what you're doing is you're putting ferrite rings to stop the RF coming back. It's what we say, choking it off, stopping it. But you need that ground tuning unit near to the base of your antenna. Yeah, you could put radials on a ground tuning unit, but then you'd have to go outside and you'd have to keep tuning it as you move along the band, because it tends not to move too much. But if you go from 14,170 to 14,300, you'd have to go and retune it, I think. And don't forget, in my case, when I'm using the trolley, I'm using the trolley as a ground bus. So I'm tapping straight onto the trolley by drilling. I've drilled into the trolley and I put a bolt through it, and that comes directly from the ground tuning unit, and the wire is only 6 inches long. And what you're going to have to do is you might have yours maybe a foot, maybe 2 foot long, and then you've got your radials which are swaying around because you've got them just above ground level, or if you've got them on the ground, they may be moving slightly if it's windy, and it'll alter the current. It'll alter the way the current is moving along the antenna. The antenna will be moving, remember, as well. So you're never going to get a perfect match. I've tried something slightly different back home. I have put an artificial earth in the house. I don't use any earth at all on my home radio station. I have what I call a floating earth. Of course, your plugs that's going into the mains is an earth, but I don't connect the ATU to ground. And what I did do, and I only did it for a different reason, I tried to reduce the noise on 40 and 80 meters by using an artificial earth. So what I did is I ran a piece of wire in where my radio equipment is, in one of my 4 bedrooms, 3 spare ones. So I use one as a radio room and one of the spare ones, you see, for sleeping in. But and in the radio room, I ran a wire around the edge. You couldn't see it; it was hidden. And what I did is, I tried to reduce the noise, because the noise has been picked up, and I thought by having an artificial earth it would work. It does. And I would say to anyone that has got a lot of noise, try that. And if you can't build one, you can make one. If you can't make one, you can buy one, I should say. And they're about I don't know, £80. And they're worth having if it's just for that purpose only.
On that note, actually, Ken, I had an interesting experience. I bought a common mode choke for the DX Commander because I was having problems on 40 meters. Every time I keyed up, the television downstairs would turn on. And so I bought this choke and I fitted it at the base of the antenna. And I had it's a bit fussy about SWR, so I had to do a bit of adjustments. But my noise on 40 meters and on 10 meters, actually, strangely, has reduced dramatically. So the coax is actually picking up something. I mean, I know it's not related to your ground, but you're just following on from the noise there. So that's another thing. I guess it's doing something similar.
Yeah, I would say the reason why I don't use a ground at home, and let me explain why I don't, and why I have a floating earth, if you know what I mean, is because if I I'm in the bedroom, so if I run a wire through the wall by drilling a little hole through the bricks and put a wire down, it's at least 4 meters long. And that's acting as an antenna. It's picking up noise, and it's connected to the station. And the moment you do that, you're pulling noise in. You're basically saying, give me more noise, give me more noise, which is not what you want. And that's why I don't have an earth. And I have never had a problem with, to my knowledge, with TVI. I've never caused interference, and the only thing I've ever done that would be, well, it's down to the radio, and that is I've got some sensor touch lamps at the side of my bed. And on odd occasions, and only on one band, I've gone into the bedroom and thought, oh, I didn't turn that light on. It's come on its own. But that, I know it's down to, it's the RF from the home radio station. But don't forget, I'm probably running 300 or 400 watts, and it's vertically polarized, and those lamps, they look nice, but they're cheap quality, and it's like the little amplifier inside the lamp. They're very, very, very sensitive, and they'll almost looking for RF. They're sniffing it out, and if you've got anything like that, you could walk in there with a 2 meter handheld, and it'll probably still turn the radio, still turn the bedside lamp on. So what I do is sometimes, if I'm going to go on the radio and it's really good conditions and I want to put a lot of power out, I'm talking about back home, I'll go and pull the plug out of the wall.
Yeah.
For the lamp.
Ken, on the chat on YouTube, Tim G4VZV has just asked whether or not you've ever tried an end-fed halfway vertical on any of the HF bands.
No, I haven't. I haven't, but I don't know, because I can't talk from experience. I can only talk from my knowledge. A half-wave end-fed, in real terms, should be a half-wave high at the feed point. And as you bring it lower to the ground, and lower and lower and lower, it will couple to the ground and not to your advantage, because it'll alter the feed point impedance. And I know we're going off the trolley business now, but if I have thought about doing it, but what band are you going to do it for? 10 meters? And that's why what do they call them? The XCB aerials, Antron 99s were either 5/8 or a half wave on 10 meters. And they worked fantastic, because everyone used to put them on the side of the house at about 20 feet above ground. Fantastic height for 11 meters for the CB radio band. And that's why they worked fantastic distance, perfect. But I can't see as I could really do it. I mean, I could put, bearing in mind it's basically a single band antenna. I mean, obviously the 20 meter one will work on 10, and the 40 meter one will work on 20, 15 and 10. But I would say the only way I would do it is if I fed one near ground level, but I'd have to take it at least 2 or 3 meters off the ground. It's not an antenna I'm very favoured, that I'm very favouring, shall we say. I'd sooner go for quarter wave verticals, and I've never had a problem with a quarter wave vertical being noisy. Always, my noise back home is S2. People say, how can you have a noise of only 2? My S meter reading's S9. And I say, come and mow choke and get it away from the house. So have a big garden and put the antenna 50 meters away from the garden. There might be some losses on the coax, but there'll be no noise.
Yeah, Ken, I said to Tim, in fact, it was a few years ago when I was on holiday on a French campsite, I put up what we called a T2LT, a tuned transmission line trap, the half-wave end-fed vertical for 20 meters. And I came into your Pacific net that you were part of on when you were operating from Spain. And I managed to work most of the stations in that net. They all got me using 50 watts up the pole. The problem is, as you say, it's very fiddly when you're operating portable, and Tim will know this, to put up an antenna that high to run a 10 meter pole. If you put a 10 meter pole up, you really have to guy it. And to guy it often in the conditions around here in the hills is quite hard. Getting the guying mast put up, doing that by yourself, running the antenna up, effectively to put a single band antenna up. So I came to the conclusion, Tim, and I think Ken's given a good reason why he hasn't, that actually the compromise of the quarter wave vertical and the telescopic whip is so good because you can just adjust it in situ in a matter of seconds. Yeah, it might take a little bit of time to get the SWR exactly right to find that resonant point, but it's very, very easy to adjust. So I think that's the reason why, Tim, I think we've ended up, a number of us, and it's quite common amongst POTA operators now that are using similar things to the vertical telescopic whips that we're using, often with a coil at the bottom so that you can get a match on 40 meters as well. Not a brilliant antenna, but it does work. Have we got? Yeah, sorry, Ken, go ahead, and then see if anyone else wants to come in. Ken, go ahead.
Final point on the quarter wave or the half wave end fed. If it was me, I would get a Chinese whip, mount it 3 meters above ground, and adjust it for whatever band you want to go on, and then have some quarter wave radials sloping down to 6 inches off the ground. And by sloping them, you'll create a good match to 50 ohms, and then you're on a winner.
The problem is, Ken, again, you need a lot of space, don't you? You can't do. When I was operating last summer up on the Pennine Way near to Blackstone Edge, I had enough problems with dogs running across my radials on the ground, let alone sticking some elevated radials up and seeing small children or dogs or even other walkers on the Pennine Way tripping up across the wires. That's the difficulty with that one, isn't it? If you've got enough space, I totally agree with you. The tune radial and putting it up high is going to work a lot better than one on the ground.
Well, yes. In my case, I've no children, I've no animals. I live on my own and it's easy. But how about this? 2 Chinese whips on 3/8 dipole connectors. And if you can, put it vertical, maybe even on the side of the house. And then just adjust each whip for whatever band you want to go on. Vertical dipole, super antenna, super.
Right, thank you, Ken. Right, anyone else got any questions or comments to Ken?
I'd just like to add that I used to, the last location I had, like you, Nick, I was using a T2LT for 20 meters on a 12-meter pole. It worked very well. But the reason I used that, the end-fed half-wave, was because I used to have to take the antenna up and down every time I used it. And previous to that, I'd actually had a quarter wave, as you were suggesting, Ken, elevated. So it's hanging at the top of the 12-meter antenna with 3 radials that slope down. And that actually was better than the half-wave. It got more DX. It also had a nice... much wider bandwidth, but it was a pain to put up, take down, pegging out those 3 radials, and the whole thing used to get tangled up every time I put it in the cupboard too. So I went for the T2LT as being the lesser of 2 evils there, but yeah, they both worked.
Yes, I can see where you're coming from. It's all about the situation that you're in. I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you've got a small garden, you're restricted. If you've got animals, if you've got children, if you've got family that congregate in the back garden, and you can't have them tripping over stuff, or animals. I mean, in my case, I've sometimes had, I've actually had a little deer coming off the field, which shocked me, but I thought, oh no. Because if I've got wires on the ground, it could get tangled up. You know, I've had a fox come in. Well, I've had more than one of them. But yeah, that's just how it is. It's Yeah, it's like I said right at the beginning. I mean, I know there's a lot of guys listening at the moment, and Phil, two Phils. I know you're both really skilled at this, and I don't want to sound as if I'm teaching you to suck eggs, and I'm not. And I do apologise, but it's what you know. You've got to keep reading, and the more reading you do, the more knowledge you've got, the more you can experiment. And I think that's what it's all about. And I've just found something. I found a hobby, and I found a little niche, something that I really can excel in, and it's fabulous. So anybody can do it. Just have a go.
Yeah, Ken, if I just can you hear me all right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well, fabulous talk. And I mean, obviously, I've enjoyed talking to you on the bands, as you know. It's been really, really good. I can only endorse if I'd known about like the shopping trolley and the aerials, because when we used to have a place down in Spain, my parents did, not far from Malaga, Fuengirola, along the front there, and we were about 100 meters from the sea, and I used to put a roach pole up and put a delta loop up, and I had a Linko DX70, a little tuner, and I used to work all around the world from there. You know, I was astonished just how good the propagation was. From what you were saying earlier, it seems to the nearer you are to the equator, the better it is. And I was working, you know, into South Africa, South America from there. But we were about, let's say, probably about 100 meters from the sea. And, you know, had I sort of known a bit more, it was in the early days and a bit limited to what I could take out there as well. But I think I could have given you a run for your money from the beach with the shopping trolley and the vertical, I reckon. But yeah, it would have been fun. It would have been fun going down there because it was quite you know, you could get down onto the beach and there weren't too many people walking around in those days. So it would have been good. But back home, as you know, I use these phase verticals, but originally I just had a single vertical up for 40, and that was just still got them. It's just a 30-foot roach pole. With a wire wrapped round it, tuned with 4 elevated radials, which are high enough so when I cut the lawn, I can get underneath them without, you know, cutting the throat. And then I introduced a second one, you know, to phase them. And at this time of the year on 40 meters, they are so sharp. You know, I can hear a VK who's S8, S9, and switch it to the east, and it's gone. You know, it varies. It can vary, as you know, but if you've got the space, I mean, I too have foxes and muntjac, little deers coming in the garden here. So I've had you know, squirrels are the worst thing at the moment, actually nibbling through coax and things. But yeah, everything you've said, I endorse, and it's a learning curve. You know, spent many an hour trying to get these things to work, and when you do, it's a great achievement, just as you've done with you know, with the trolley and that vertical. I mean, your signal's outstanding when I listen to you, you know. So if you can work Bouvet Island, then I think you've really you know, really achieved something great. I think we're all trying to do that, but anyway, we'll see how that goes. But that's all. Anyway, I just wanted to comment, just saying how much I've enjoyed talking to you, and hope we'll have many more contacts while you're down there.
Okay, thank you, Phil. And well, 2 points I'm going to mention. You hit the nail on the head when you said fun, because that's what it is. It's fun making it, and when it works. And yes, you would have given me a run for my money. And I said I'd like to go to the Pacific. The next alternative place is the Mar Menor in the south of Spain, where it's salt water all the way around. And I think that would be marvelous. So the Mar Menor, yeah, you bang on, you're right there. And yeah, superb. And yeah, it's been the same. I've enjoyed it. You always call in, Phil. There's no word of a lie. When you call in, you are always S9. Signal strength S9 means you don't really get much better than that for the YouTube listeners, you know.
Yes, it's the same with my friend ZB2JK, John King in Gibraltar. When he goes up onto the rock with a little whip, I mean, again, he's only running a small amount of battery power sort of thing, and on 10 meters, I mean, he works all around the world from Gibraltar. It's if he was actually down on the beach, I don't know if he does that sometimes, but certainly on top of the rock, absolutely fabulous, fabulous. And he's always loud here. It just seems to be a good path down to the Med from here.
Yeah, and one other thing that I've not mentioned is the fact that you're outside. If you're near salt water, you're breathing the salt air in. There's always salt air, no matter what. You can see it even on your glasses when you're sat or you're walking along the beach. You get the residue of salt. And salt is an antiseptic. And you'll never get a sore throat or a head cold if you walk along the beach every day because of the qualities of salt in more ways than one. Yeah.
And the expeditions now, I mean, I think gone are the days of the bit out to take all the big beams and all that stuff. Although having said that, they're doing it down in Bouvet. But the vertical dipoles in the sea, isn't it? A lot of them I noticed, that's what they're using. And again, they get fabulous results by doing that.
I think these de-expeditions now have realised, like you just said, Phil, use vertical polarization next to the salt water. It's got such advantages. I mean, really, all you've got to do is put 4 of them up. I think either yourself or Phil, Chief, or you have got phased or 4 squares, basically 4 of these up in the air. And you can switch between one direction and another. Fantastic. And that's what I think they do. They know what they're doing. And I think now that's why they go near salt water and super. Can't beat it. As regards the Bouvet expedition, I'd like to have got that, but there's no chance, I don't think. And the reason is because I'm coming back to the UK tomorrow morning. And that's it. Can't do it from there. Not with my single quad loop.
Right, I've got Howard, and then I've got a question from Igor for you, Ken. Over to you first, Howard.
Okay, thanks, Nick. Good evening, Ken. I was chatting to you 2 days ago, if you remember. But I wish I'd have known you 5, 6 years ago, because we used to spend 6 months of every winter just up the road from you at Montreal. And I'm sure I was talking to Mary about it, and she said, you've spoken to Ken when you were down there, and Ken was going to come up and show you his kit. But we never got around to it, but there you go. So, great chats. And I agree everything you said today about the salt water. I mean, even back in the CB days when I used to live on the Isle of Man, there's a little place I used to go to, which had a little harbour, and you drove down the quayside, and you were literally surrounded by water apart from the width of the road. And your little DX, whatever it was, Cobra 148 DLDX, and a fire stick on the roof. We used to work all over the place on it. So, yeah, I'm very simplistic. As I say here, I've got an end-fed. Well, it's a configuration. It's an end-fed wire, but you just do what you can. But you don't need. I've become more convinced this last 6 months of being a QRP station. Yeah, it works. But I'm definitely going to be thinking about some of the kit you've got.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, a radio trolley you can actually buy one, and I bought one in my sort of earlier days, £8. It cost me pounds, sterling pounds, and all it was a shopping trolley, and I took the bag off it, and there was my trolley.
Yeah.
So, and that's how I started it. But now I've moved on to more heavier duty trolleys. But you can get a good trolley to work to put your station on for as little as £30. And I mean, think about it: £30 and an old second-hand HF transceiver for a couple of £100. You can have the most formidable DX machine, and you can take on these guys that are running a killer. I tell you what happened yesterday. I was calling CQ and a load of Americans came back. And while the Americans, one after the other, and then an LX Lima X-ray 1, I'll not give you the rest of his call, called me. And I actually admit to ignoring him because I'd got all these Americans answering me. Goodness me, within 20 seconds, I got a carrier on the frequency, and he was loud, but I could hear the Americans through him. And that's what it does. What it does, it gets others angry because they can hear you working stuff and think, bloody hell, how is he managing to do that when I've got my tower up?
Yeah.
Ken, for those of us in the UK who've ever seen on television Kirsty and Phil, the three words there which apply to your operating in Spain is location, 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 isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
I've got on the chat, and apologies, Igor. I know obviously English is not your first language, but his question he posed in the chat, Ken, was how to be with my location where a lot of metal beams. Not quite sure where those metal beams are, Igor, but I get the concept. And he says maybe you've also had experience with that, and also sea under a pier. So
okay, I can explain.
Go ahead, Igor. Yeah.
It means because my boss give me access to install some antennas in there, and I can use it when I will get the license. So actually, I've tried already to use the long wire, but I get just big noise and nothing more. So I now already have like a dipole, and I want to use it, but there are a lot of beams where I can put this antenna, you know, and the problem is how it will works. It will receive, and it's horizontal orientation.
Question to you, Igor. Are you living in an apartment block?
Yes.
And how many floors? How many levels?
5.
And where are you? Are you on the first floor or the top floor or in the middle?
In the middle. Unfortunately, in the middle.
Right. Okay. Are you friendly with the neighbors?
Yes, I'm friendly with neighbors, but you know, unfortunately, I'm renting apartment, and there are rules. We cannot keep stuff like lithium ions and etc. You know, there are a lot of moments in that. So I asked. That's why I asked my boss to have a permission use station there, and he said, "Okay, if you will get the license, okay, I will be happy, and it's okay." But you know, there are a lot of metal beams underneath. It's like a metal platform. Also, under the pier, it's a sea, salted water, and nearest beams will be like 50 centimeters from the antenna, nearest. I mean, you know that some of them will be vertical oriented, and some of them will be in located like in parallel. And so I can install on my workshop 5-meter vertical antenna. Needs to try it. Because the workshop located far from the beams, and maybe it will be helpful because the workshop will work in like very good earth, and because it's metal covered, and have also good earthing.
Yeah.
The nearest beams will be like 7 meters from there.
Okay.
And another way I can install a long dipole. It's like one of the variants of W3DZZ. You know that antenna, which I used it at home in Ukraine, but I used that dipole like long dipole, not the shortest, and I get the good results because it was located on the fifth floor on the roof, fifth floor building on the roof, and I get very good results. I never used more than 20 watts on my transceiver. Never used it, and I get connection to the Bahamas islands.
Are your beams on the rooftop of the apartments, on the very top of the apartments? Igor?
Is unstable.
Oh, I didn't get that. But Igor, are your beams on the top of the apartments?
It's not apartments. I mean, I'm trying to install antennas on the working place, not at the apartments. You know.
Okay. Yeah. Well, what I would do is I would use the metal below your antenna, but I would use a vertical antenna, not a horizontal one.
All right.
Because why would I use a vertical one and not a horizontal? The answer is this: if you use a horizontal one, it will affect your matching on the dipole because you're too close to the metal. And a dipole is an NVIS antenna, near vertical incidence type antenna. In other words, the signal, if your dipole is horizontal, you've got the signals going up and it's going down. It's hitting and it's surrounded by the metal, and it will detune it or act as maybe a reflector, but I don't think so. So you better is to put it vertical and use the metal as a bit of a ground plane.
Okay, I understand what you mean. All right, yeah.
Try that. Somehow fix the vertical, even if it's a few centimeters above the metal bars. And
okay, yeah. What's the solution? Maybe you can recommend. What's the solution? Maybe you can recommend to use, because they're high wind, and what material will be better to use? because I read about the fishing rods, about something like that. But on your practice, which better? What will be better to use?
Well, there's so many different types of, well, we call it cord, CORD, cord.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many of them that you can use, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of guys listening here that will give you the names of them.
Okay.
And you can buy them. They're usually expensive, but the reason they're expensive is because they don't stretch. You know, in the wind and in the rain, most cords will stretch. So after a storm, you'll go back up to look at your vertical antenna, and the cords will be drooping. Instead of being like that, they'll have drooped down. So I think any nylon cord, it's only just to stop it, to give it a little bit of stability. You're not making it 100%. I don't think you can ever do that on top of a building, but a little bit of stability. Make sure it's nylon or some form of nylon cord. And I know that there's so many different types. Every time I go to a radio exhibition, they're throwing this cord, almost throwing it at us, wanting us to buy it. But it is good. Usually, I mean, in England, you can buy 100 meters of it for about £10.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's it. I just want to know, maybe because I want to try. Also, I want to try to use the dipole. When I will install it, I will let you know.
Excellent.
What it will be, because I also do not sure is it will working or not. So needs to try. Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah, you've got a good dipole there, and the G3. What was it now?
W3DZZ. Yeah.
Yeah, DZZ. Yeah, that's a great dipole. It's been around years and years and years, but it's a long antenna. It's a long, very long wire antenna. If I thought you could have sloped it down, that would have been good. You could uncouple one leg of it, so it's only half the size, and you could use one leg and have a sloper. Because if you look at where the traps are, they're marked for quarter waves, and you'd be able to run a sloper for 14 meters.
Yes, right. I thought about that, but no space there to locate like this. And also, I may pay attention about the rides, because there are a lot of rides which will working all the time, and safer. It's a first moment, which important, very important, and I should locate my antennas where no customers, no one can be allowed to touch it or something, So that was much more important to me. Yeah.
Igor, this is what you need. Let me show you. You need one of these, which is what is on my radio trolley. Okay, it's an extendable whip.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I know what it is.
I don't know how much it would cost where you are, but in England, maybe £10, £12. That is the best 5-band antenna. If you cover 6 meters, 6 bands. You can even have
Mhm.
2 meters and 4 meters out of the same aerial.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I
Yes.
will try to use that. Also, that I will try to use, because I want in Ukraine it wasn't possible to have access like I want to go to the roof, and there was like, okay, you want to install something.
Yeah,
You
listen,
have
listen.
1 day, you can install and forget it.
Yes, Igor, whereabouts are you? What country?
Now I'm in UK.
Oh, in UK, right. If you have a
Yes.
problem and if you can get these, they are on AliExpress. If you
Yes.
have trouble,
Yes.
email me. I'll give you one. I'll send it to
I will
you.
find. Thank you very much. Yeah, I will find.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Ken.
Okay.
Thank you, Igor. Igor, I did put in the chat that and the the telescopic whips Ken's talking about are very good, but if you're in a location that's very windy, they do bend very severely. And I think you'll be better off if you want to play with a vertical antenna to try one out, to use a good quality fiberglass pole like the Spider Beam or the DX Commander poles, which are made of a very, very much thicker quality material than the fishing poles that are sold very cheaply on eBay. You pay a little bit more money for them, but they stand up to the weather very considerably. Spider Beam make a 7 meter one, so you can run a wire up the 7 meter pole that would enable you to have, where you could run several wires up it, but you could start with a quarter wave on 20 meters, so approximately 5 meters of wire up the pole. There's your vertical element. And then for your ground plane, you can put down some wires, of course, but if you've got some metal beams that you can actually attach to, I reckon I would try attaching the ground part of your cable to one of those metal beams, if that's possible, and running against the vertical antenna. All you can do is try it and see what it's like and see how it operates.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your advice. Maybe I will try to use cheapest one first to be
Yeah.
sure is it working or not.
Yeah,
Because
exactly. Yeah,
because
I agree.
how I understand on the pier a lot of equipment which making noise. For example, like DC converters.
Yeah.
We have a lot of PLCs. We have a lot of drives for the motors, and they are making a noise.
Yeah.
I have ITU. I have a bandpass filters, but anyway, if antenna is receiving that and it's it's noise with high level, anyway it will be received by transceiver. And yeah, that's also the problem, but I will try and we will see.
Yeah, Igor, I know our friend, a club member of ours, Jeff, Oscar November 8, November Tango, is not here tonight, not unable to be here this evening. He lives in a block of flats in Belgium, and he just uses one of the hamstick antennas that are sold for mobile whips to put on cars, and he attaches the earth mounting to the metal of the side of his block of flats on the balcony, and he has tremendous results just using 50 watts from his transceiver on HF, using ham sticks on HF, on all modes, on CW, on sideband, on data modes. He uses all 3 modes with great success. Igor, he posted on our WhatsApp group today that he entered GQWW RTTY contest, and he got #1 in Belgium for QRP operator on RTTY using hamstick antennas on his balcony of his flat.
I heard about that, but I do not pay attention to that antenna. Yeah, need to read a little bit more, maybe. Also, I will try. Actually, my plan is I want to try, like Ken said, use that telescopic antenna first because the cheapest way.
Yep.
And use our ATU to connect it to the transceiver. And I have VNA, nano VNA, to check where resonance I have and which resistance I have. So after that, if I will have normal results in that, I will try to use it. Now, just I'm preparing, I'm collecting information first, and after that I will decide what I will to do. So yeah, massive thanks in that Ken, G4VZV, for your experience and for your advice in that. Yeah, I will try, and when I will get some results, negative or positive, I will let you know on next meeting or a little bit later, yeah, when it will be possible. All right,
Brilliant.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Igor. And Igor, you are very welcome to attend any of our meetings. You do not have to be a member of our club to come to our meetings. They're open to all amateurs interested in what we're doing. So do come along. We've actually got a meeting of this group again next week, and we have a speaker who's going to talk about the building of this wonderful kit made by QRP Labs, run by a guy called Hans Summers, who's made this beautiful little transceiver kit, the QMX transceiver, and Martin's going to come and give a talk about that next week. So you're very welcome to come along to that. Same Zoom ID as tonight. And if you haven't done already, Igor, join our mailing list, and you'll find it on our website. Join the mailing list and you'll get all our up-to-date emails telling you what we're up to.
Okay, thank you. I will be pleasure to meet it again. Sorry, maybe I said something wrong. To meet again, meeting. You understand? I think. All right.
Yeah, I do.
So,
I do.
yeah, I will be pleasure to be and to listen some new information because I always try to learn something new. Doesn't matter. It's about antennas or about amplifiers or about transceivers. Also, if everyone interested, I received a package from the AliExpress and get some tests with amplifier, which China producing. They are based on the MRF 9120, if you know that, like in one box, two transistors located, yeah, and that amplifier, how they are showing it should do 100 watts, but they do not explain to users their main problem in that, because the gain not useful. How to explain it? I don't know. That the voltage which you can send by to the gain, it should be plus maximum plus to the plus 15 volts, but minus it can be just 0.5, and it can burn your transistor immediately if you will use like 5 watts input to amplifying it. It's not right, but they are producing, and that kit is they are sending everywhere. So it's not very wonderful kit, and I get it. I tried some experiments with that, but I decided to use the motherboard with transformers which located there, and some stuff on it, and I will use the RD100, which especially made for amplifying, and yeah, it's just my experiments, but anyway, to get more knowledge.
Yeah, no problem at all, Igor. And we had a speaker about a year ago here from the US
All right.
who had designed a very small kit, a build of an RF amplifier for his one was a single band amplifier with which he'd had great success. So again, Ken said to you, Igor, about antennas. Feel free to drop him an email. The same's true for me, Igor. If you want me to send you a link to the US amateur who gave that talk to our club on a very simple RF amplifier, I'll be very happy to send that to you if you want to email me. My email address, Igor, is G4IWO@btinternet.com, Bravo Tango Internet.com, G4IWO, and send me an email and I'll send you a link to the details of the kit. Okay, well, Ken, I think we've seen people have been having to leave as we've been going on. We've still got some people watching us live on YouTube, and Andy has just commented, great show, 73. So thank you for joining us, Andy. I think it's probably time we wrapped up this evening. I've just got a question to those of you that are remaining, and it's a thought that I've been thinking about. We've got a speaker in a few weeks' time, Howard from the Long Island CW Club, which started as quite a small online club and has now got something like 7,000 members in about 170 countries in the world. Incredible. But they run a whole series of different YouTube meetings every week. And one of the ones they do, which is very successful, they've just called the Antenna Forum. And what they've done is they've got 1, 2, or 3 members of their club who are taking part in the Antenna Forum, and anyone can come along and throw the sorts of questions out that Igor was chucking out about antennas, and I've tried this and want to build that. And it occurred to me that maybe not every week, but maybe once a month or once every few weeks, we could have an open discussion about antennas based upon anyone coming along and saying, actually, I've tried this and it didn't work, or I've thought about building such and such. How do I do it? And having at least some people, and Ken, obviously you come to mind as one of them, but we've got some others in the room as well who would be capable of helping people out, would be able to field those kind of questions and answers to people. And I just wondered whether people in the room here thought that we ought to have a go at organising an antenna forum regularly, really. And Tim, G5TM, if that's you commenting on what I've just said there, sounds great. Then I'll take that as a yes on YouTube. Does everyone else think that's probably something we could probably do from time to time in the club?
Yes, yes, good idea.
So no presentation as such, not someone coming along and saying, this is the, we've had some wonderful presentations in the club of people talking about, 3-element vertical beams and all kinds of wonderful things. But just having an open forum where the meeting is generated from the floor of people like yourselves asking questions of a small panel of people. I just need to get the volunteers for the panel now. So, but I think it's a good idea. All right. Well, look, on that note, can I say a very good evening to everyone on YouTube? Thank you for joining us. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you're watching the video later in the week or the month, when you come across what we've been up to in our club, hope you've enjoyed the Pennine Ham meeting tonight. And a big thank you to Ken on his last night before he flies off early in the morning back to the UK for your contribution tonight, Ken, and advice to everyone this evening. Yep. So thank you very much, Ken. And thank you to all our listeners.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions.
Very good.
Thank you, Ken.